9:17, and ever since the pandemic, more people ditching their traditional jobs, venturing out on their own, looking to do what they really love and get paid for it.
But where do you begin, right? That's a big question for so many. Here to answer that question and more is the author of The Enlightened Passenger, Poirier. Thank you so much for being here, Corey.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me.
Yes.
So you help everyday people uncover their passion and purpose. That sounds like a big load to take on.
It is, and I've had times where I've broken people out into groups and given them 15 minutes, and then I thought afterwards, wow, I'm asking them to do something that some people don't do in their whole lives in 15 minutes. It is big. I will say for me, why I mention both names all the time is they're not interchangeable, in my opinion. Passion is what you do, purpose is why you're actually doing it.
Okay.
So like, if you're a photographer, that's the what, so the passion, and the why you're doing it might be to create new beginnings for people. So they have those pictures for as a legacy thing. So yeah, it's a big thing to take on, but at the same time, when you hear the numbers, I've heard many studies that have said less than 5% of people find their passion in their whole life.
Yes.
So when you hear the numbers, it's worthwhile taking on the task, because look at the lives we can change if we just help more than 5%.
Right, so how do you get people there, right? How do you get people in first to even say, I need a change, right? Because so many people are in these jobs, stagnant jobs, saying, well, this is what I went to school for, this is kind of how I have to make my living, I've got to support my family, and they don't realize that they can make a change to begin with.
Yeah, so there's two answers to that. There's one, they hit rock bottom and say, I need to make a change. I hate to say it, but that's the easier one, because once they're there, it's like, just show me what are the answers. I would say the better scenario is to realize something's missing in your life and do it as we like to call a side hustle. Do it as a side hustle. So weird scenario, but for me, how I got into my passion is I got tricked one night into performing stand-up comedy. And then I started doing that on the side, and eventually that evolved into speaking on the side, but I didn't leave my job. And so people will even say to me, well, how do I get paid to do it then? I want to do this for sure and replace my job. I always say, if you think, how do I get paid to do it first? It's not a real passion. But once you start doing it on the side, eventually I think the way to get paid to do it will reveal itself. But for me, if you're already missing something in your life, why not try to add something else?
Yeah, people are chasing the paycheck, not the dream.
100%. That's a perfect line right there.
I think so many people who have success start like you did, just dabbling on the side, and then they say, I got to do this full time. You've interviewed over 7,000, top achievers, very successful people. What do they all have in common?
Well, there's many things, but if I got to the easy one, the low-hanging fruit would be to say they all live on purpose. That's the low-hanging fruit because it's what we're talking about, but truthfully, if I look at the common traits above anything else, it's that they figured out what they were called to do and they spend their time doing it. But if I go beyond that, because again, that's low-hanging fruit, they have certain habits that they have in common with each other that other people don't do. For instance, one is what I call the power of no. So I started studying this, and I've noticed when I grew up in a small town, I was told to say yes to everything, and then figure out how to do it later.
Yes.
What I've discovered with high achievers is they say no to everything that won't move the needle for them towards what they want to do, and only yes to the things that will. So they have to figure out what a no really is, but they say no to almost everything. And the numbers I've figured. What's that, sorry?
No to who?
To anybody that comes and says, hey, will you take on this? Will you do this?
At your job?
At their job, or if they're running their own business, or home. It could even be down to...
let me just take some notes here. No.
Don't tell anybody's boss that I said to do this, but that's what they do, and it's better to work the muscle when it's harder to do, really, when it's early on. But they even say no to, sorry, I'd love to help you move the couch. But... And what I found a way to say no and not burn bridges is to say, I'd love to help you move the couch, but I need to check with my family just to make sure it's not going to interfere with anything. If I can help, great. If I can't, can I find you somebody else that can help move the couch? What mostly happens is a day later, that person figures it out on their own. But yeah, they say no to pretty much everything that won't move the needle. So the numbers I figured out is they say no at least 20 times more than the average person.
Wow.
Seems like a little bit of just being selfish, right? You're saying no to protect your boundary and your needs before you meet someone else's.
100%.
That's hard for people who are people pleasers. I'm not good at saying no.
Yeah, neither.
And I wasn't when I started. I grew up in a small town. My grandfather said, just say yes to everybody, and that's how life happens, and things will happen for you. It was hard to reprogram myself to say no, and I literally had to work it like as if I was going to the gym. I had to start doing it small, in a small way. It had to be repetitive. I figured out the easiest things to say no to where I wouldn't burn bridges and built my way up. It was hard, but I honestly think, now this is my opinion, I think it's more selfish to say yes to everything. For yourself, it's more selfish to you because you're not giving yourself time, you're not giving yourself a break. Honestly, you might be preserving your sanity. You might be keeping yourself away from a mental health breakdown by actually starting to say no to people. So I think it's, in my opinion, selfish to yourself and your family to say yes to everything. Because here's the one thing I know to be true. If you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else.
Yeah. It's so interesting you brought up the pandemic because we covered so many stories, people pivoting their careers because they had no other choice, into what their real passion was, which they knew all along. It just took a pandemic to get people to really pivot.
Can I ask you a quick tip for people who feel like there's a void?
Right.
What can you tell them to find their passion? Like, what can you say, here's a tip to, like, what makes you tick?
So can I share a quick exercise?
Sure.
Okay, so what I share with people is to take a pen and a piece of paper.
Okay.
Now, honestly, you can do this on an iPad, a phone, but for me, even as somebody who's uses technology, I think it's easier with a pen and a piece of paper. What you should do is you should sit down with a pen and a piece of paper and ask yourself some questions. Pretty easy. What would I do if money wasn't an issue? What would I do if a pandemic came along and it wiped out my job? What would I do that when I do it, I don't watch the clock? What would I do if I went to the beach and retired because I won the lottery, but then I came back a month later because I was bored?
Right.
What did I do when I was a kid and people said, don't do that anymore, it's not practical? Go back to all those things, make that list, and that list will be your whats. So I love photography, I think, or I want to do stand-up comedy, I think, or I like playing music. And you make that list, and now you have a list of things I think I'd like to do. Put them in order to the one that you think gets you the most excited. And then if it's hard to do that, then break down to baby steps. Put the baby steps in place, like if it was stand-up comedy. I should invite a comic out for lunch. Watch a HBO special and make notes. And then take those baby steps, give yourself little rewards. And I think what you'll find is after a few months, you'll have literally tried these things to the point where you know, is this really a passion?
Fascinating. Corey, we could talk to you for hours. It was great to have you here to talk about
Personally, we could talk to you personally for hours.
Thank you for being here this morning. Make sure, if you liked what you heard, to pick up Corey's book. It's called The Enlightened Passenger, wherever books are sold. Great to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.